Good afternoon. I want to thank Senator DeFrancisco and Assemblyman Farrell for giving me the opportunity to speak today on the proposed budget for 2014, and I also want to thank members of the Assembly and Senate who have joined us today to listen to Syracuse and the plight of other cities in New York State. Syracuse is the smallest of the so-called Big Five cities, and yet, despite its size, we are the anchor of the central New York region, which some people say runs from Lake Ontario to Pennsylvania, and others would tell you runs from Canada to Pennsylvania. So it is a large swath of land. And while we are the smallest of the Big Five cities, we have been able to utilize that as a benefit to allow us to be incredibly innovative in terms of modernizing our government. And so whether it has been initiating the first of its kind in this nation to implement the Say Yes to Education program, and Say Yes to Education, for those of you who don't know, provides a whole host of academic, social, economic, and health and family supports to the students and families of the city of Syracuse. And it starts with after-school programming and summer school programming, and promises the families of students that if they graduate from a city high school, that they will receive tuition-free college to any of the state schools and a number of private institutions as well. And within that category, you can see that we are a city that values education and values an innovative approach. And I would like to personally applaud Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo for including universal pre-K in the budget this year. Syracuse is a city on the move. We have had in the past 4 years record numbers of construction permits issued and cranes in the air, which have become, of course, the proverbial sign of a strong economic development. A number of these projects in Syracuse and Central New York were made possible through the Regional Economic Development Councils, and I want to thank all of you, as well as the Governor, for your support of this vital program. As I said before, Syracuse is a center of innovation, and we have tremendous workforce and intellectual capital in the clean energy, healthcare, and higher education fields. And we have recently and continue to receive national recognition for our exciting work that we are doing. We were the only city in New York State to be designated as one of IBM's smarter cities. The EPA chose Syracuse and Onondaga County as one of the 10 cities nationwide to be recognized as a green infrastructure partner based on our success in implementing green techniques to manage stormwater and our progress in making Syracuse and Onondaga County a more sustainable and livable community. This past year, the U.S. Green Building Council awarded the county executive, the Syracuse University Chancellor, and myself its Global Community Leadership Award for our collective commitment to greening the Syracuse community. That recognition was just one of many recognitions that our community leadership has gotten for the fact that we all work together. We are on the forefront of the government modernization commitment, and we have already implemented numerous shared services and consolidation efforts to make services more efficient and more dependable for the people of our community. So whether it's sharing the services of certain employees or consolidating a planning department or moving forward to transfer our attendance and payroll systems from a pen and paper to a 21st century data platform, we are on the forefront of doing that. A recognition that the governor himself chose to point out in his State of the State. And thanks to our state leadership in allowing us to move forward on a land bank, we have also been innovative in looking at our property tax and vacant property issues. This past year, the city of Syracuse was able to fully implement the land bank with Onondaga County, and as a result of that, we have seen the collection of our delinquent property taxes and fees increase by more than 69% in 2013. And as well as the fact that we now have a system for dealing with our vacant and dilapidated property. And this is a system that allows us to do much-needed repairs and renovation of our vacant properties, and of course also serves as a real revenue-generating tool. And we are excited by what we have seen to date, and we think we will only see many more benefits going forward. But despite all of these exciting accomplishments and initiatives, as Mayor de Blasio referenced in his remarks, we are in the midst of a fiscal crisis, like all governments, particularly city governments. It is a sign of the times that we live in. Yet, unlike other government levels, cities bear the direct responsibility for providing vital services on which our residents, workers, and visitors rely every day. Police and fire protection, water, trash, and snow removal are obligatory functions of any healthy city. And frankly, any transformative economic development investments would fundamentally wither away should the city be forced to discontinue delivery of these services. And as a city, we recognize that, and we have been doing our best to make the tough choices, to cut our costs and boost our revenue. We have tightened our belt and, as I mentioned, consolidated services. The first in the state to pressure our tax-exempt institutions to pitch in for the costs of expensive city services. We have closed firehouses and senior centers. We have reduced our workforce. We have made employees and bargained with employees and asked them to contribute more to their health care. And recently, we sent a letter to all city police retirees requiring them to enroll in Medicare programs or to relieve the city of their health care expenses if they are employed by an employer who provides health care. We have done all of this without state help. We have done all of this because we have non-controllable expenses that are crippling our ability to save ourselves from what appears to be impending insolvency. Employee costs have skyrocketed and comprise approximately 73% of the city's overall expenses. In the past 10 years, city pension costs have grown by 400%, 71% of which belong to police and fire. In order to pay for the city's pension and health care bills, we have engaged in many tough decisions and done what we can to increase our revenue and cut our costs. But what we have also had to do is make the unfortunate decision of putting off many necessary capital projects. This is an example of what has come to be called the crowding out effect. Skyrocketing spending on public employees and their pensions and health care reduces our government's capacity to make investments and deliver needed services. Crowding out is especially tough on cities like Syracuse that have experienced big declines in property values because property taxes are a mainstay of its income. I must also remind you that with over 51% of the properties in the city of Syracuse in a tax-exempt status, that raising property taxes is an especially difficult decision. I would also hesitate to add that of those 51% of the properties that are tax-exempt, the state of New York is the #1 property owner. In a recent letter to Governor Cuomo, I requested emergency funding for the city's most dire capital needs. None of these projects are sexy, but they are essential to providing an important quality of life to the people, visitors, and others who come to Syracuse. They run the gamut from police cars to road reconstruction to parks facility repairs to water mains. All of these are services that are vital to enhancing and enticing and increasing economic development projects. Without addressing our crumbling infrastructure needs, I fear that our multi-million-dollar construction and economic development investments will not be able to reach their potential or will indeed stop. In addition to our crumbling infrastructure needs, we have also not hired the necessary employees that we need to hire in order to provide key services. We have currently 57 vacancies in the police department, and we also have significant vacancies in the fire department as well as our other city employee staff. With the demands of an urban population, these vacancies are being felt by the people of my city and are constantly reminding me of how important it is to the overall safety and security that we be able to provide these and other services. Just a few years ago, it was common for water mains in our 100-year-old system to break only in the winter with temperatures like we see outside today. In the past 4 years that I have been mayor, we have seen that change to a point now where water mains are breaking year-round. And if you can't deliver clean water to the people of the city of Syracuse or to the businesses of the city of Syracuse, spending millions on economic development seems fruitless to me. As I said in the beginning of my remarks, I want to congratulate Mayor de Blasio and the governor for putting forward a universal full pre-K program. I would also like to congratulate the governor for including the P-TECH expansion as well, which is an innovative program that hopes to match high school students with needs in science and technology and engineering. All of these educational initiatives are incredibly important, and they will have a positive impact on not just the students of my city, but also the families, and of course, as Assemblywoman Nolan said, for the people of New York State. We have ambitious plans in our school district, and we are working very closely with the leadership of our school district to move forward, despite the tremendous challenges of the Common Core implementation and the fiscal issues that affect the school district as well. As mayor, I have an obligation to deliver services to the people of my city. And while I welcome with open arms economic development projects, it is becoming increasingly clear to me that we need to make sure that our basic needs are taken care of first before we can have meaningful and real economic development. With aid to municipalities remaining flat for the past 3 years, it has become increasingly difficult, despite sharing of services and belt-tightening, to accomplish those tasks. I ask that you continue to look at the economic model for cities and provide assistance for local governments, as New York State is only as strong as the cities that represent it. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblyman Magnarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, it's good to see you today.
It's always good to see you, Assemblyman.
Let me just say this to begin with. I agree with you on the needs of the city and what you're trying to do. So I want to just say that because I'm not just going by it, okay? But I'm looking at the budget, and you in particular know how I am, kind of. I want you to know that as far as AIM is concerned, as far as infrastructure needs are concerned, those are not the I's, cross the T's kind of a guy. Things that I agree with you on wholeheartedly, and will work hard to make sure that those things are at least addressed or looked at the very least as we go forward in the budget. There are some other things, though, that are in the budget that I just have to ask you about, if you've even heard of these, or are you working on these, okay? First of all, there's the Citizens Reorganization and Empowerment Grants and Citizen Empowerment Tax Credits. Have we worked on any of those in the city of Syracuse?
We have worked, the city of Syracuse, as I said in my comments, has really been on the tip of the spear when it comes to consolidation and shared services, right, as you know well. But what we have found is that the amount of money that the state has traditionally provided, normally through the Secretary of State's office, has not been enough to really encourage or help us with projects. As you may remember, and I addressed in my comments this year, last year we were trying to put together the funding to help us move forward on an information technology system. The goal with the information technology system would ideally be that at the end of this implementation, that every government in Onondaga County would be on the same platform, so that we could have fewer people doing payroll and bill paying and more people providing direct services. As we went to various folks in the state to ask for help, they said, that's a great idea, and that's the kind of behavior we want to encourage. But they didn't have the necessary resources in order to help us put that forward. So I say that to say that as somebody who has done this in the past and will continue to do it, I remind you that in order to encourage and really help support, which is a very difficult task, to ask people to do things differently or perhaps even think about giving up a job that they once had, that the more resources that you can put towards that, the better off you're going to, the better off the end product is going to be.
Okay. So local government efficiency grants falls in the same place. We have, and again, I say this
respectfully, we have looked at those every year, and they just simply have not been enough money for us to qualify for, give us the resources in order to implement, whether it's been consolidating our planning department, whether it's been consolidating the purchasing department, moving forward with the information technology, shared services. You know, we have quite a track
Just
record
not
on
enough.
this.
Not that it's not a good idea, it's just
Correct.
not enough. Okay. We've talked a lot this morning, especially with the mayor of New York City, about pre-K. The governor provides $100 million for statewide universal full-day pre-kindergarten for 2014 and 15, increasing by $100 million each year and resulting in a total of $1.5 billion over 5 years. In your opinion, and as far as Syracuse is concerned, is this sufficient funding to provide access to full-day pre-kindergarten for all eligible children in Syracuse?
What I can tell you is that we currently have 1,400 pre-K seats across the school district where we work with outside agencies, and we have waiting lists every year. And I cannot tell you, because I haven't seen the breakdown of whether that's going to be sufficient for Syracuse. And I also know that in talking with the superintendent that there is a need for more state money in the general Syracuse City School District. So I
Which was my
applaud
next
and think it's
question.
important. And let me just say another thing that is somewhat out of character, not just as the mayor of the city of Syracuse, but as a woman of a certain age who has friends and peer groups with children who are in that age group, where they are trying to figure out how to keep their children safe before they go to school with daycare and providing safe, affordable, and thriving environments. That we as a state have not done well in terms of that particular group. And universal pre-K will make a big step forward in providing for the mothers and the families of this state a safe place for their children to go where they will be able to thrive in an environment that is constructive.
That gets me to my final question, okay? The unrestricted school aid that's being given to our schools, is this enough to keep the schools in Syracuse solvent for the coming year?
I don't believe it is. The superintendent does not believe it is. We have, as you know, a very high needs district with, at one estimate, over 55% of the children who live in the city of Syracuse live in poverty. We have a huge population of English language learners, refugees, and students with disabilities. And the superintendent and I have talked about that the initial dollar amount that was put in for the city of Syracuse, it would not be enough.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you. Senator?
Senator Martins.
Mayor, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Senator.
Thank you. Does the city of Syracuse offer universal kindergarten to all of its students currently?
We do not. What we do is we have a certain number of slots, and they're on first come, first serve, and we always have a waiting list. I would also say towards that, that we have offered full-day pre-K and half-day pre-K, and there is no interest in the half-day pre-K. That for the families in the city of Syracuse, half-day pre-K does not work, so there is always a list, a waiting list for full-day pre-K.
But for kindergarten, not just pre-K, but for kindergarten itself, do you offer full-day
I'm
kindergarten?
sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, we do.
Because this past week when I went back to my district, I had an opportunity to sit with one of my superintendent's school boards and a group of parents. This district doesn't offer kindergarten, full-day kindergarten. And so I asked the question, and certainly I think there may be an analogous situation in Syracuse. If we require full-day pre-K, how do you handle that on the local district level? And being a local official and as a former local official myself, I would like the flexibility to be able to make those decisions for our own community and decide where those monies go, whether they're better spent on a full-day kindergarten or full-day pre-K, In this particular case, they said, we'd love to have it, but the reality is that we wouldn't be able to afford it. And although they see the benefit of it, they would probably, if they had to, have a full-day pre-K, not offer kindergarten at all, and then bring the kids back for first grade, which seems absurd. So when we talk about finite choices because we have finite resources, as a mayor, do you think the monies for your particular city would be better served, and frankly for other communities, villages, towns, school districts around the state, would be better served by increasing the amount of aid and allowing you the flexibility at a local level to decide how that money is spent rather than requiring universal full-day pre-K all over the state?
Well, Senator Martins, I think that that's kind of a barbed question because normally when questions like that are posed to me, what that means is we're not going to give you enough to do either, and we're going to make you be the person who has to share that. I would say to you that we can't afford not to do universal pre-K. We are losing an entire generation of young people. We have to, as I said, particularly with children who are born into poverty, they need that extra assistance to compete with their wealthier peers. There's been studies that have shown that this will do it. I also said, that it is important that we allow families a safe place to send their children in a thriving environment, and this will do it. I think we as a state and the people of this state, I believe, would agree with me that we should fund universal full pre-K as well as full-day kindergarten.
I agree with you, by the way. I don't disagree if we have the resources to do it. In an ideal world, if we do, great. Should we allow our local officials the opportunity to make those decisions, or should it be another mandate that comes down from Albany? And I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator. You don't have anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm used to being skipped. Assemblyman Pretlow. I thought you were I was watching for the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Welcome, Mayor. I have three simple questions for you. First, what percentage of the Syracuse tax levy goes to education? I'm sorry. Is that better? Yes. Okay, Mayor, what percentage of the Syracuse tax levy goes to education?
Approximately 69%, 68 to 69%.
69%.
Yeah.
Okay, and there is some talk of a commercial casino opening, if not in Syracuse, close by.
I don't think so.
No?
No, because the Oneida Nation is close by, and so...
I know, and my understanding is they signed off on it, that it was okay if they got a piece of that action.
Well, my understanding was that the county was going to get funding as a result of sort of a non-aggression pact, if you will, that there wouldn't be a casino. But I may be mistaken.
Okay, then there is some talk about it, and I do know that the Oneidas had come to some sort of agreement that would allow it, but I don't know if that's going to happen. And my final question is, what would the cost of full-day pre-K be to your city?
I don't have that answer, but
About
I'd be happy to
approximate-
get that answer to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have 17 questions with 6 subparts to each one. The first question, you've got your wish list here that you mailed to the governor around Christmas time or shortly after it, because it says Merry Christmas. That list, are those all one-time expenses that you're looking to have filled? When you say $2 million for this, $10 million for that, or $5 million for that, I think they total is $13 million. Is that immediate needs that will be corrected with that money, or is it something that will
No,
go
it would
into
be, these would all be, some of them would be recurring, but they would be immediate.
Number 2, are you as a city of Syracuse, and I should know this, at its bonding limit now?
We are not. We have, and that's part of what has exacerbated this problem, because we have been extraordinarily fiscally responsible, and that has been pointed out by Wall Street and the bonding houses. And in fact, this past year I was recognized as a trailblazer in public finance as a result of our fiscal responsibility. We only bond what we can pay off. And as we are spending more of our discretionary income to use a phrase, towards pensions and health care, we are able to spend less and less on our bonding needs. And so roads, instead of doing $5.5 million every year, we're doing $3 million. With water mains, the same. It has backed up to a point where it's reached crisis level.
Okay, and Senator Martins mentioned earlier, I think to Mayor Brown, about the concept that these were at this point in time, and he knows more than I do, that we're getting close to the peak, if not at the peak, of these pension costs. Have you made projections as to when this pressure is going to start being relieved?
Yes, we believe 2015, and then it will gradually escalate down. That's based on projections with numbers that we have used from the comptroller's office and also our own budget projections. But it doesn't drop off a cliff. It escalates down, which is why when you talk about this is not a continuing need, we believe. This is a crisis, and then once we can get back onto terra firma, if you will, we'll be able to pay for some of these.
Okay, and do you have any idea why that's happening? What's the logic behind the pensions going down, pension costs going down? Has it anything to do with the last two pension tiers, for example?
We don't believe it is. We believe it's more of a function of the fact that the baby boomers will be retired and out of the system, that the system will have worked through the crisis of 2007 and 2008. So there's a whole bunch of cost factors that go into what's called the ARC, but there's no simple answer. It's a bunch of factors.
Great. As a city resident, I'm not looking for you to bond, believe me, and I'm not looking for you to pay taxes. We'll see what we can do here.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As your mayor, I'll make sure your garbage gets picked up, Senator.
No, it's doing a good job.
Thank you.
Doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.